we're now recording, and want to just see who's in the room. And Carolina, would you be willing to just call on people, just go across the screen, just your name, if you're part of where you're located, and if you're part of XR, where are you? And I'll just to model it, I'm Edwin Rutch from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm with XR, the Empathy Circle Working Group, as well as the local Bay Area XR.
Okay, so next on my screen is Joe from Cambridge.
Is that me, yeah? John?
Yes.
Yeah.
John, sorry.
John, yeah. So, yeah, I'm John, XR in Cambridge, UK, yeah, interested in the empathy circles and possibly facilitating people's assemblies in Cambridge. There is someone already doing it, but I just wanted to get trained up, really.
Okay. Thank you. Peter McFadden.
Unmute myself. So my name's Peter. I'm talking to you from Frome in the west of England, and I work with the Future Democracy Hub of XR, and also the climate what is it called, the Climate and Ecological Emergency Declaration Working Group. So 2 internal groups, and then I do a lot of stuff with the local XR group as well.
Thank you. Annie Cross, would you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm from Newham in East London in the UK. I'm coordinator of my local group. And yeah, this is the first I've heard of empathy circles, so I'm really intrigued to understand a bit more, which is why I've come along this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bill?
Bill, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area as well. I'm a retired special education teacher. I'm with the Empathy Tent group and also the XR Facilitators group.
Okay, thank you. And next is Misty and then Paul. Misty.
Hi, I'm Misty. I'm from South Africa, but I'm living in near Melbourne in Australia. I'm a coordinator of the Regen group for our town. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Next will be Willie Poulter. Paul.
Thanks. Hi everybody. My name's Paul. I'm a coordinator of the Future Democracy Hub in XR, and I live in St Albans, just north of London.
Thank you, Willie.
Hello, I am Willie. Work with XR for about a year now in various guises, but at the moment I'm focusing on a couple of projects, including a sort of like a climate cafe online for people living in isolated areas or disabled people who can't get out of their house. So people to share their feelings, and I'm really interested to see. I've never heard of empathy circling, and I'm really interested to see what this is all about. And yeah, I'm excited.
Thank you. Next on my screen is Finlay, and then Severine. Finlay.
Hi, I'm Finlay. I am very slightly involved with the XR in St Albans, friend of Paul. I am interested in all forms of we space intersubjective fields, philosophically and spiritually. Cool.
Thank you. Severine?
I am Severine, called Sev in XR, from XR Switzerland, from Valais, Martigny, and starting to develop empathy circles here in Switzerland. And I'm glad to be here with all of you.
Thank you. Next is Richard, then Harris. Richard, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, hello, I'm Richard. I'm originally from the Netherlands, now living in Berlin and Leipzig. I have a background in nonviolent communication, also joined several empathy circles. And besides that, I'm also an artist, and I just want to show you my last artwork. Maybe you can see it.
Beautiful. Okay.
That's me.
Thank you, Harris.
Yeah, good to see everybody. I'm Harris. I'm with XR Norway. I'm the international coordinator in XR Norway. I'm interested in citizen assemblies and all sorts of similar processes. So, and I'd like to learn about empathy circles as part of those. So thanks.
Thank you. On my screen next is Kerry, and then Guillaume. First, Terry.
Hi, yeah, it's Kerry, yeah.
Kerry, sorry.
Hi there. That's all right. I'm from London, UK. I work with nonviolent communication, and XR-wise, I'm connected to nonviolence and I'm excited about how empathy circles can be one way of responding to conflict.
Thank you. Guillaume.
So I'm from France, in a little village west of France, where there was a lot of local actions last spring and during the summer. And then I traveled a little and whatever. And so now I'm on the national thematic groups of international coordination and media message. And I'm participating now for help organize the COP25 thing in Madrid and relay that in XR France. And it's a lot of work and it's not easy all the time. And I'm happy to be with you. It's going to be a nice moment for me to learn. And I really love all those aspects of XR.
Thank you. Next on my screen is Vish, and then Tenant, AG Tenant. Vish.
Yeah, hi, I'm Vishal. I'm involved in, I don't know, like a few different things in XR. But I'm looking for a career change, feeling really doubtful and lost recently. And then I spent the weekend with someone called Jamie Kelsey-Fry, that I think a few people here know, introduced me to participatory democracy and Peter's book and what the Future Democracy team's up to. And I'm really excited. So I'm here to learn how to be a better facilitator, and I think it's something we need. Yeah, so...
Thank you.
Next.
AG Tenant.
Morning, I'm AJ. I'm in a media team here in Sydney, but we're also setting up a Regen regular event, which we are trying to base sort of on Sunday assembly, church for environmentalists, monthly get together for Regen. So I thought this could be very useful. I am entertaining a little baby here this morning, so because I might be singing nursery rhymes and things, I may just turn my video off, but I'll see how I go.
Thank you. Franek.
Hi, I'm Franek. My real name is Mieszka. I'm from Poland, from Poznań to be exact. I'm just interested in empathy circle because I think it will help to self-organize this Poznań circle in XR Poznań circle in Poland, and that's it. Yeah.
Thank you, Mieszko. Patrick.
Hello, I'm Patrick Gendron, and I'm in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I do some local organizing around climate strikes and some local state legislation efforts. And I'm really interested in localism and sustainability and citizen assemblies, and I'm interested in this empathy initiative too.
Thank you. And the last on my screen is Rita.
Hi, I'm Rita. I'm from Melbourne, Australia. Currently, I'm a bit further south in a place called Brimley. I'm part of, or just beginning to be a part of the Regen group in Melbourne.
Thank you. I hope I didn't omit anybody because some people changed their vision. I hope everybody already introduced themselves. My name is Karolina. I'm calling from Poland. I'm a member of local XR group and also develop empathy circles here in Poland and cooperate directly with Edwin and Bill Filler, who is, both of them are here. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carolina, for that. So welcome to, I'm Edwin Rutch, the founding director of the Center for Building a Culture of Empathy. And this is a free empathy cafe that we're going to be using the empathy circle process to explore how Extinction Rebellion can best build a facilitator, a democracy facilitator army. And we're recording this to generate capture the insights and kind of promote the practice. And so the outline is we just did our participant introductions. We're going to have an introduction from Paul, who's going to introduce the XR Future Democracy Hub Facilitator Army sort of concept, give a little overview of that. Then we'll give a short introduction how to do an empathy circle and then go into breakout rooms, which I'm trying to manage here as we go along. And then about 20 minutes before the end, we're going to all come back into this group and we're going to have just a report back what we kind of ideas that came up in the circles. And so with that, I think we're ready for Paul you feel ready to jump in just to give your introduction.
Thanks, Edwin. Hi, everybody. It's great to see everybody and so many different parts of the world. It's really amazing that we've got you all here today. I'm just going to give you a quick overview of the intent of the Future Democracy Hub and the Facilitator Army. So I think you probably all agree that democracy is in need of something of an upgrade. We certainly do. And the good news is that many, if not all of the solutions do already exist. It's just that they're not widespread in the culture. So the main kind of one sentence summary of what the Future Democracy Hub is trying to do in XR is to embed those new democratic tools into the DNA of the culture. And that will in turn increase the cultural collective decision-making capability. And the focus really here is on participation. So we want people to be included and feel included and, contribute to the wise answers that we need to make collectively to solve this crisis and anything else in society. So we're very much embodying the Buckminster Fuller principle of if you want something new, we've got to build it and make the existing system obsolete. And the facilitator army is being created so that we can master the craft of that creation of the new democracy. There's a lot of experts involved and they can disseminate some of their expertise, but really what we need is lots of people learning this and getting on the streets and finding out what works and what doesn't. So that's our main intent, to build that army of facilitators, because we can talk a lot about democracy, but it's only when we actually get out there and do it and create it are things really going to change. So what we've created is a range of tools. Some of the people who've contributed are here today, that are ready to pick off the shelf and run with. Some of them are very straightforward, very entry level. Other ones take a little bit more planning and preparing and doing. But they all combine the three pillars of the deliberative processes, and they are radical inclusivity, active listening, and trust in the process, ourselves, and our trust in others. And I guess one ultimate measure of success would be just how many people attend sessions and feel included. So that's all people in society. what proportion of those people have actually attended and felt like that upon leaving. So in terms of what services we're providing or facilitating the provision of, we're not providing them all ourselves. We're a very small team at XR doing this. But we've got three main deliverables. We've got a discussion platform so that the facilitator army have got some way of keeping in touch with each other and connecting and having conversations online. So that's a permanent Lumio platform, which is a platform designed and built for democratic deliberation. So we've got the support of that group as well. The second deliverable is that we do online and face-to-face training workshops and deliberative sessions. So this is an example of one of those that Edwin's facilitating today. And that's very much the model. So the people who are a part of the facilitator army are in this community, can come along and facilitate what they know best and learn from each other. The third offering is something we're calling Conversation of the Month. And all this is a selected individual conversation, topic and methodology, and a way of just stimulating that for that particular month, a particular conversation that will hopefully engage a few people in the army and many people hopefully in that particular month. We're having that particular conversation. So it just cultivates a little bit of shared conversation. We can take it as an action research project to go away, try it out, come back and learn from that, share our lessons, and practice and master the art of facilitating deliberative processes. And also cultivating national conversations on topics of importance, which could then be disseminated in terms of gathering the results of those. So that's probably the potted summary. Hand back to Edwin.
And what kind of ideas would you like generated here? Because we're really trying to brainstorm to support this project, and we're going to be just opening it up to everyone to dialogue using the empathy circle process. But what are you kind of looking for? What would be helpful?
Yeah, so that description, we're really excited about, particularly about the training that we can do. So basically, any ideas about what we would need to take into consideration in terms of scaling and facilitating these sessions actually happening. So there's lots of inquiries. What is it that people will need to get started? That's one thing. What is it that people will need to be able to reach out to the people to come along to those sessions? And yes, very much kind of thinking outside the box as well. If you've got any ideas and any experience that you can bring to solving some of those challenges, what would it take for us to go from where we are now to, say, 100 people in the facilitator army doing regular sessions each week, and then 1,000, and then 10,000? Anything.
Yeah, great. Okay, then let's go into next so we're going to be going into breakout rooms with the empathy circle process. Yeah, Carolina.
We have to introduce everybody to the method. Did you?
Yeah, I was about to do that. So, do you want to give that a shot, Carolina? I just posted in the chat window a PDF which we have that gives a short introduction to the process we use, and just wanted to check. Like, we did put it out there to give the instructions. It's helpful if people see it beforehand. Who has checked it out? Just trying to get a sense.
I'm afraid nobody has this PDF yet.
Well,
yeah, it's not there, Edwin. If you can post it again.
Oh, okay. Just posted. Oh, it was a privately. I see. It was everyone. So that's the short introduction, and there was some video introduction, but we'll give a short introduction of how the process works. Carolina, do you want to give if you feel,
okay.
I'm springing it on you because I'm kind of wanting to track, I'm kind of doing some tracking of the
Okay.
here.
Okay. So in short, there are three roles in empathy circle. There is a speaker, active listener, and silent listeners. And active speaker chooses active listener, and he or she can choose whoever they want to choose, anybody in a circle, and they start to talk for allotted time. Speaker shares his or her ideas, thoughts, feelings, whatever they want to share with others, and pauses to let active listener reflect that back. After some time, when a speaker feels that he feels well heard and he ended his thoughts, there is a turn, and active listener become a new speaker and chooses another active listener. So that's how the runs are going on among the participants. There is usually allotted time, usually 5 minutes. And when you are active speaker, you share your thoughts, your feelings, and it's good to pause, to give chance your active listener to reflect what you just said. If you speak too much, too long, it's very difficult to reflect properly what you just said. When the active listener reflects what they heard from you, it's good to observe, is it correct, or if you mean something different, you can always make some corrections. You can add something, you can use different words to help active listener to reflect you as well as it possible. When you are active listener, it is a time for speaker. So your job is to reflect what you just heard from the speaker, but you should refrain from any judgment, any advice, suggestions, analysis, whatever. It's the time of the speaker to be heard, and your job is to express in your own words what you just heard from the speaker. It is his or her time to be heard. After that, you will be a speaker and you can share your thoughts, your feelings. You can refer to what you just reflected. So that's the main rule, very important. And silent listeners, please observe the process, how everybody follow the rules. And also you can observe how your focus, concentration changes from the moment when you are active listener and when you are just silent listener. It's very interesting observation. So that's how the process works in short. In a first round, probably we will model the process, so those of you who never saw it before, you can learn just observing.
Yeah, thank you for that explanation. And we have, see, 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. We're going to be 5 in a group, and it will be, I'll facilitate one group, Carolina another, Richard, is that okay if you do one group? And I think you have, and then the last group, the 4th one will be Bill, and will be also, they'll be the facilitators. They're familiar with the process, and they'll be doing the recordings in the room. So I think let me check my list here. Oh, also there's a if you'd like to take notes, there's a Google Doc, a shared Google Doc. You can take notes there about the ideas that come up, or just have a little notepad, you know, jot down there, because we want to have a little bit of a sharing at the end. We'll end about 20 minutes before the end, and come back in the circle and then go around. Everyone can kind of share their insights. And I think that's it. It's best to get right into the circles and just do it. So with that, I hope I have everything set up here right. I think one person, let me just double check. Yep, everybody's been assigned to a group. Okay, we're going into the groups right now, and we'll see you there. And remember to record. Facilitators, turn on the recording. Okay, we're great. We're all here. So our question again was, how might we build an XR facilitator army? And if whoever would like to start, perhaps you could speak to me just to model it. And we have 5-minute turns. And I'll also keep time. And once the turn is up, I'll put up a 5-minute sign just to let you know that your time is up. So just whatever anybody like to start, just maybe speak to me to model it.
I can start.
Okay.
So I'm glad to be here. I have one question I would like to share with the others, because in Switzerland we have had one difficult episode happening when there was one person in XR Zurich, I think, and he, I don't know exactly the details of the story, but he had been in a very extreme left-wing movement, violent movement, and it had been too tough for him. I think he got hurt or something, and then he decided to quit and to come into a non-violent movement, and then he came into XR. And I haven't had personal interactions with him, but of what I heard, he was having a bit aggressive. People felt aggressed by him.
Okay, let me reflect that back then. So what I'm hearing is there's someone who joined your group in Switzerland, and they had previously been in a very sort of assertive, you know, combative type of group, and then now he's joining your group, which is nonviolent, but he has a really aggressive attitude, and sounds like you're kind of wanting to share that story and ask some questions about it.
Yeah, because what happened is that he has been warned many times. He has been reminded the principles of nonviolence, of tolerance, non-judgment, etc. But he couldn't help it. He couldn't help being judgmental and a bit aggressive. And so the group was not functioning anymore, the Zurich group. So I had no consequence of all that. And they decided to silence him in the group so they could function again, which he, of course, didn't like at all. And our question was, okay, there are some people who make it hard in groups, and probably groups don't fit them very well, or they don't fit in the group or whatever reason. But we want to be inclusive. So we were thinking, what kind of role could we give to these people who would like to be in XR? We don't want to exclude them, but we don't want them to ruin our functioning. So that is the question I wanted to share with all of you.
Okay, so you're just posing this question: is what do you do when there's someone who's very aggressive comes into the group, you want to be inclusive and include them, but it's very disruptive, and it even was so disruptive, it's not like they want to silence him, kind of. And you're just like wondering, what can you do with this, you know, a person like that? How can, just looking for ideas like how to address this problem.
Yeah, I guess to a certain point, empathy and therapy or whatever could help that person, of course, to a certain point. But sometimes it's not enough, and for some people are just not feeling well in groups anyway. So, and it's their way to defend themselves. So maybe that is not enough. So, my question is more: what kind of role could we give such people? So they have a role, they have a place, but they don't harm the harmony of the group.
So you're really wondering, like, is there a role that they could do with their sort of aggression or like assertiveness? Is there some kind of a role they could do, because maybe empathy and these other approaches might not really work. Therapy might not really work. So is there something role to give them?
Yeah, exactly. I feel absolutely fully heard. Thank you very much.
Then I'll speak to Carrie, if I might. Are you still there? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. So what's happening now? Is Severine finished her turn and you're asking me to speak?
Yeah, I'm going to speak to you if you'd be my listener.
Thank you. All right, got it. Yeah, I will listen to you.
So yeah, I get 5 minutes. I'm just thinking of what Severine is the issue, because I see that comes up a lot. You know, there's sort of this fight mentality in a lot of these groups, and how do we? And it inhibits democracy, because it inhibits everyone being heard, because they dominate. It's sort of an authoritarian quality to it. Can we just reflect that back?
Yeah, great. So yeah, you're following on from what Severine said. You're really noticing how some individuals in groups come with a kind of fight mentality, and somehow it dominates the group. You're reflecting on that at the moment.
Yeah, and the approach that I would sort of theoretically would sort of do is it's setting the intention of the group, saying that empathy is a primary value in the group. That's our intention, and it's to do an empathy circle like we're doing is sort of a required practice. That because I don't know, there's no, it's almost like in some conflicts, if people are not willing to follow these basic rules, I just say, I don't want anything that I can't talk to you. We don't have a foundation, that I'm willing to engage in. So it's having it be a firm rule. This is it. If you want to be part of this group, it's that everyone gets heard, and you explain, why it is, and then we do it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just reflect that bit back. So I think I'm hearing that a need for a kind of firm foundation of something like an empathy circle, which is a sort of structure, and it's a requirement of people to, when they come into a group, it's a structure, it's a requirement. This is how we operate, a firm intention of empathy, of this kind of empathic structure.
Yeah, and
that's how you would.
So you broke up a little bit with you. So it would be, one is setting the intention, getting everyone to agree to it. Say, yeah, we agree to this. Two is doing it, so to practice it. Like I would say the first meetings, you actually do it and kind of learn the practice. And then also have an agreement that if there is a conflict, that we will use the empathy circle to work through it. So it's kind of like a layered, we're kind of building this empathic, and I would say a democratic container, kind of bit by bit.
Yeah, thank you. Let me just reflect that bit back, because there was a kind of 3 levels to it. First, of having an agreement with people that we will proceed with empathy circles. Second, that we have practice. And third, that there's an agreement that if there is a conflict, that we will use this process, this structure to move through it.
Yeah. So that's why I think that this practice that we're doing is just so central to groups like that, and you know, it just can help with cleaning up a lot of conflict. You know, it's just the starting point. There's a lot more. I know that you're familiar with. You know, you're very skilled NVC trainers, a lot of other practices that can be added, but this seems to me like just a very, you know, first step, foundational sort of a practice.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, how this practice can be central in helping clean up messes, helping clean up stuff. And there are other practices as well, but this could be one that's central.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel fully heard. Thank you.
So shall I go now?
So it's your turn now. Once you've fully heard, then it's you select someone. Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
And do I choose my listener?
You choose the listener. So as the speaker, you get to choose whoever you want, but it's nice to kind of spread the attention around.
Yeah. So Vish, can you listen to me?
What's up, Kerry? Nice to see your face.
Hi Vish. Yeah, we have met, haven't we, on the stairs at Lambeth County Court?
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, we have met in person. Yeah. This question: how might we build an XR facilitation army? I'm kind of just sort of sitting with that question. Really, it's there's a little bit of complexity for me because there's many different kinds of, sort of facilitation. So I'm not sure if that question is just looking at empathy circle facilitators or other kinds of facilitators or different practices. So not sure about the scope of the question. What's there for me? I'm liking what I'm hearing Edwin say, is having this kind of baseline of, you know, we have a regenerative practice that is a go-to practice, like empathy circles. I think that would be really, really helpful to have that kind of go-to practice embedded in all working practices, all working groups.
Can I reflect that much? Is that right?
Yeah.
So just initially, just about the question. We need an army of facilitators, but what kind of facilitators? Because there's so many different types of facilitation. So you're wondering about the scope of the question. And then thinking about what Edwin was saying about there being like a baseline practice that we kind of all return to, like a regenerative practice. We all have, for example, empathy circles.
Thank you. Yeah. And I work a lot with restorative practices, and for me, kind of empathy circles can be one option on a range of restorative practices. And I think that if the empathy circle practice was more embedded, then there would be less conflict, for sure. I'll stop there.
So sorry, terms I don't fully understand, but have some understanding of, so sorry if I get it wrong. You work with restorative practices, restorative processes, and kind of seeing that empathy circles can be part of those practices, but like in a preventative sense as well. Like if you have empathy circles on a regular basis, you might have less conflict to then need to restore.
Yeah. So one thing that is I'm kind of starting to look at the moment is responding to kind of Roger's Holocaust statements, and the possibility of empathy circles to deal with impact and for people who care about this issue. And I was talking to the conflict resilience team today, and wondering about the possibility of having several empathy circles for people to talk about the issues that are coming out of the Holocaust statement. So, because there's issues around decentralization, and there's issues around accountability. So, having empathy circles to kind of process what's there for people. I'll stop there.
Yeah, so like a good use of the empathy circles right now would be to help our collective processing of the impacts of Roger's Holocaust statements. And yeah.
Yeah. And there's also, I think there needs to be something other than restorative, other than empathy circles as well. Maybe a restorative that there can be some. I'm not quite sure what that would look like. But some around accountability that's also needed as well.
I'm sorry, Kerry, you cut out for part of that. I can make up what you said, but could you just say it again?
Oh, wouldn't it, if you did make it up? Yeah, I think sort of in essence what I said was need for some process in addition to empathy circles to deal with the impact and accountability around Roger's Holocaust statement. So some kind of restorative process in addition to empathy circles. That's what I said.
Yeah. So
did I reflect myself?
I don't know. I'm not sure if I do understand you. So is that if I say it in a slightly different way, just to make sure I did understand it? Is that right, Edwin?
Absolutely.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Just
time's up. Yes.
Do your best. Yeah. Just do your best.
So yeah, is it that like we could just do empathy circles and that helps deal with the impacts, but it doesn't actually do anything about Roger making the statements? There needs to be some kind of process that actually addresses the quote unquote perpetrator. So there's some accountability there. So there's some extra processes required, not just empathy circles for the victims, if you like.
So it's something like that. I see a need of a different process as well. Yeah, and it's to do with accountability. Yeah.
Yeah, accountability. Yeah. All right, sweet.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
Willie,
Vish.
you're up, mate.
Everyone, so just so I understand, just to clarify, so I'm picking a listener now.
No, you're my listener.
Oh, you're my listener. Oh, wicked. Right,
Yeah,
cool.
you're just reflecting back what Vish says. Just to.
Go on, mate.
Nice to see you again, man.
Yeah, nice to see you too, dude.
What's that one I'm actually feeling? Yeah, so I'm a facilitator, apparently. I'm a facilitator because I just happen to facilitate. I've not had training. I just picked up things on the hoof, seen a couple of facilitators work. I've not had training, and I've been put into like loads of situations now where I'm facilitating like fairly hefty things, like the XR Rebellion debrief in June, and then the next one, and then like now like there's a couple of conflicts, and people are coming to me, oh, Vishal, you're experienced facilitator, aren't you? Can you facilitate this conflict? And it just seems like there's loads of people who are being put into positions where they facilitate who don't have training, don't have peer support, don't get good feedback, don't get to debrief the debriefs or debrief the facilitation. And that's kind of going on.
So so you feel like you haven't had any formal training in particular for your role as a facilitator, yet you seem to have taken on. I can relate to it. You seem to have taken on a fair amount of stuff, and seem to have found yourself in a position where you are facilitating, yet you don't feel like you've had a baseline training in it.
Yeah. And it's fine, right? It's fine because like I think I do a pretty good job, and you know, it's all right. And but like, you know, what makes me that person, right? And what makes you that person? Probably because we're both slightly cocky guys, you know, that we just put ourselves out there and say, fuck it, you know what, I'll do this thing. So then already just the fact there's no training doesn't just impact our ability to do it, but also start selecting for certain groups of people. And we kind of don't want to be doing that. And there's like another piece around, you know, like in meetings, like now that I can facilitate, you go into some meetings and there's just like, who's going to facilitate? Someone starts to facilitate and it's just fucking, it's so shit. You know, it's really, really, it's done really badly. And there's a lot of frustrations that are born out of it. So yeah, there's two pieces there. I'll let you go.
Yeah. So for me to get this right, so you're saying that you're not saying that you're necessarily a bad facilitator. It's just that there seems to be this almost like a reaffirming process of you going in and picking and making decisions based on your background and your experience, and you again you're being picked to do these big things. Was there something else I've missed there?
Yeah. Well, just on that point, it's not really me making decisions. It's more like, why is it that I now am a facilitator? It's just because I had the initial trait of being willing to do it. And then we might just end up with like this massive group of like slightly cocky people who end up becoming facilitators, when there could be loads of other people where if you gave them a little bit of training, a little bit more confidence, there could be these really intuitive, subtle, you know, kind of facilitators that we don't get to see that much because there's not that baseline of training. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you're saying that the reason one of the main reasons you found yourself in a facilitator position is because you were prepared to step up and you're a confident person, yet somebody else who may not have the confidence to step up may be a perfectly good facilitator. They just haven't been maybe encouraged or felt the confidence to step up and do it.
Yeah, totally. Like, say, like what Severine was talking about, you know, someone might come to me and go, oh, yo, Vish, can you sort that situation out? And like, I might not be the best person for it, but just because, you know, I've got my name out or I'm seen to be doing it, you know, I might get chosen for those things, but it might not be that I'm the best person for it. And so I guess, yeah, I really feel the need for more training, more practice, but importantly, like a peer support network where you can like reflect on good practices. I don't even think we need to have like super experienced facilitators training us. Like you figure out a lot of stuff on the job. Oh, I'm done. Cool. That's sort of 5.
So you think that our system would be a lot healthier with a more diverse range of people facilitating, maybe with a peer support system in place for, I guess, like sharing ideas and sharing concerns and sharing learning. Would that be fair to say? I'm kind of adding a little bit to it. Maybe.
Totally, that's totally.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel heard, man. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah. So, Sev, do you want to go for me? Cool. So, yeah, I find myself in quite a similar position to Vish, because I'm somebody who's been throwing myself into things. I found myself, it assumed that I might be the best person for the job. I turned on my burner phone the other day and I got a text from XR Farmers, some guy in XR Farmers, offering me, well, suggesting that I might know what to do with the pink tractor. So I'm not even in Southampton anymore, like where I was, I think I think when it comes to facilitation, having a diverse group of people would be really, really important. I think the key thing is to find out exactly how it is that we reach out to people.
If I understood well, so you are about in the same position than Vish, having the feeling people are turning towards you for questions and things in general, just a bit as if they would do towards the boss, or because you're prone to move forward and do the job. And is that about what you summary of what you said?
Yeah. I would add to that it's, in my opinion, it's a matter of reaching out to people in an effective way. So what I have seen is when people come into the movement and apply their skills based on what they've done in the past, their experience and their skills, they bring their expertise into the movement and apply it to the rebellion. So the reason I say that is because I've seen digital designers make really sexy stuff that looks incredible and invites people in. They're able to, when you get people who are able to word things well and sell things in the term sell, but I mean promote something based on their experience. You get a team together who are good at what they do based on their experience and their skills. I believe that would be the way to get a facilitator, more facilitators. So I'll put that again because my brain, apologies Seb, I've got ADHD, so sometimes I'm what I'm saying is that I feel if the facilitator army, I don't like the term army, by the way, the facilitator group that we're trying to promote, getting more on board, I feel a good promotion team putting together a briefing, putting together maybe a logo, putting together all these little things, and then you'd get more people being like, hey, that sounds like something I can do, because it's been put to me in a way that seems sure of itself.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm going to try to summarize.
I won't blame you.
This is not my mother tongue, and your accent is, I'm not used to your accent, but I'm going to do my best.
I'm impressed, I'm sure.
Of what I understood, you have the feeling when people come into XR, they do the best out of what they have in their gut and what are the talents and whatever, and it would be good if more people would dare becoming a facilitator, and maybe we should advertise what we do and more, and so the army would grow bigger, the facilitator army would grow bigger. Is that it?
So yeah, that is pretty much exactly what I said. I'd like to share a story that might highlight a little bit more. When I joined the self-organizing systems working group briefly, and the reason I did was because there was an advert put together, like a little advert that was like, are you tired of how your group is being facilitated? Like, do you feel like things could be better? Like, it was kind of like, it was done in this story sort of manner that really grabbed me, because I was slightly frustrated with how the organization of my local group had been, and it had been delivered to me as something that sang to me as somebody who was, I feel like, right for joining the working group. So I feel like the facilitator role is essential. It's really important. I feel like it can save so much time. It just needs to be got across to people that they are capable of doing it, and and that it's an exciting thing to do. And that's how I feel.
Okay, I'm not sure I got right the first part, but of what I understood, the group, the facilitator group, is very big in your XR regional movement, and it looks like you're all sort of proud to be facilitators, as if it was the best. But you really think it is extremely important and crucial for XR. Is that what you meant?
Not quite. Is it okay to just quickly correct?
Yeah, you want to get you finally heard. That's sure.
So what I'm saying is that I feel the best way to get more people interested in facilitating and taking on the training is to deliver is to promote it in an effective way. That's effectively what I'm saying. So I think this is equally important. It's equally important to be an active listener as it is to be an active speaker. I feel like I need to be more concise with what I'm saying. I'm sorry, but yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's more you've got to touch people in a more effective way so that they feel like trying to become a facilitator or try it on at least.
Yeah, I feel heard.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Should I change? Because we don't need to do the same circle all the time.
You go mix it up is good.
Okay. Is Carrie really busy here? Knitting something? Or I can also talk to Vish if Carrie is busy.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, yeah, that's interesting. Well, I'm surprised because we don't really work the same way you guys seem to be working. So the people who become facilitators, well, it's never the same person. I mean, it's one after the other, and there's nobody who's specialized into being a facilitator, so it changes all the time. And we mostly encourage people who who don't talk much to become facilitators. And it's very interesting because some of them almost don't say a thing and during the groups. And when we ask them to become facilitators, well, they feel like, oh, I'm never going to be able to do it. And they do it really very well. So that is the way we usually do it here in Valais, at least in my region. So do you want to?
Yeah. So there's like a difference that you're noticing in the way in which you think that we're working in England and what you're doing in Valais, where you don't have any specialist facilitators per se. You just pass it around and take it in turns. And you're noticing that sometimes people who don't speak very much, they'll facilitate and they'll do it really well. They'll surprise you.
Yeah, exactly. And part of the principle of trying to just need to charge my computer. We need to fight against power taking. So it's part of it. For us, it was natural to do it that way. Yeah, maybe you want to reflect on that.
Yeah. So it's quite good, isn't it? You reflect and then you get to mull over it. Yeah, I like it. Part of that, the reason why you do that in that way is to help to reduce the kind of polarization of power in any one person, or we use the phrase mitigate for power. I'm not sure if that's the phrase you guys use, but yeah, so you pass it around intentionally.
Yeah, also, yeah. And we give it mostly to people who speak less. But then thinking also about the troublemaking people, I was thinking they need to be listened to, from which, I don't know. Well, they need to be heard, to feel heard. I was thinking that the empathy circle could be a good thing, but I was thinking also some people can't go into empathy circles. And in our group, we have 1 or 2 people who have been unwell, either ego anxious or unwell because of family reasons or whatever. And they are made such that they can't cry. They have not learned how to do that, and they know if they go into an empathy circle, they might cry, and they feel so scared of it that they can't enter the circle because they feel so bad. And so it's actually a sort of training for people who feel bad to dare coming into the circle and crying if they need to. But people need to be trained to be able to do that. It's not that easy. And some people, it's not only crying, it's also being scared of, I don't know, feeling so ashamed or whatever, feeling really bad, or being too sensitive to what other people say or whatever. And groups they don't feel well in groups. So some people are not well into empathy circles. That was one of my thoughts also.
Yeah, so I think I got most of it. There's something I want to clarify with you, if that's okay. So yeah, some people, so you started by saying that some difficult personalities just need to be heard, but then like kind of, is the empathy circle the best place for them? Because sometimes you feel that some people who might have emotions that need to be expressed, they kind of might be aware that the empathy circle will bring it out, and they don't want to, like you said, cry, or maybe just like, express emotion in that space. And so it might not be the ideal space for them, but then people need to be trained. I'm not sure whether you meant they need to be trained to see the benefit of an empathy circle, or if you meant they need to be trained to do other things. And the other thing I was going to ask is, what do you meant by like feel bad? You said they might feel bad in those spaces. Do you mean as in they find it uncomfortable, or?
Yeah, you got it right. That the detail here is that, the way I feel things is that some people have to be trained because they haven't learned to express feelings in front of others, and they can be trained for that. But some other people are too sensitive and too fragile psychologically, and could really not stand it, because groups are too difficult for them. So for me, there are 2 types of people, and some people are not made to be in groups. They don't feel well in groups because they are psychologically too fragile, and we need to take these people into account. So I'll be done with that one.
Some people may not work well in those groups. They might be too fragile to be in these kind of spaces, so we need some sensitivity around that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to say, I feel heard, otherwise...
I feel heard, yeah, sorry. I feel totally heard, thank you very much. Yeah.
All right, Ed, let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, it's weird. I came in with an agenda, and then I was feeling frustrated because it's like, we're not going to do the practical thing I want to do. But actually, this is drawing out something interesting. So the thing that I was interested in was becoming a facilitator for participatory democracy. So that's where, you set up people's assemblies in your local area, and you invite everyone to talk about their shit, their issues, not about XR, not about climate change, not about anything that you want to do. You just have these groups where you invite them and say, we're here to listen to what's going on in your life and come together as a community. Yeah.
So you're feeling a little frustrated initially because you had sort of an agenda, something you wanted to cover. And the thing it sounds like you wanted to look at is not just having like people's assemblies around XR related issue, but just in general, and just a space where the community, the citizens can come together and be heard, feel like they're heard about sort of any issue.
Yeah, 100%. And this is where we need to be shit hot, right? Because in these environments, if the facilitator starts saying something like, as a Marxist, suddenly like half the people are like, this isn't the place for me. I'm not intelligent enough to be here, or I don't have the right political understanding to be here. You know, you can exclude people. But furthermore, and this is, so you can easily like sort that out. You can easily get facilitators just to like, you have a blacklist of terms you're not supposed to say. But the thing that's hard is, what if, you know, you get that, you know, some drunk guy comes in and starts rambling on about some crap that's going on and hogs the space, and suddenly this very delicate environment where a community is coming together for the first time since community's been decimated in our country. Communities coming together for the first time, and then you as a facilitator have to manage this difficult personality, and that person needs to be heard in some way and respected, but also need to manage like a broader group of people.
So you're thinking of the dynamics of a community or of a people's assembly like this. So the dynamics of it, like one is the terms you use could turn people off. If you use Marxism, it's going to have to, people are going to say you don't want anything to do with this. And then there's also people sort of interrupting it, like a drunk person, they're taking up the energy, and then, you know, how do you sort of deal with that? So you're kind of looking at how to have a kind of a constructive environment where everyone feels included.
Yeah, yeah, totally. And I guess like, you know, Severin's got it easy in some regard, but XR generally has it easier, but a business, a corporate environment has it even easier. The reason being because we all have principles and values that you can call upon and say, oh, well, actually, you know, in this space, we have these principles and values. If you don't meet them, then, you know, you slap on the wrist. But in a business environment, you could say, sorry, mate, you're fired. You can't be behaving like that. But in this participatory democracy environment, you know, you say, oh, we have these principles and values. They'll be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, that doesn't, you know, it wouldn't mean as much. So it's even more delicate a process. And so I'm just starting to realize that we have to really hone in our skills and practice our skills at dealing with these situations, because it's not just like a broader group of people coming. You also don't have that shared understanding of principles and values.
So for the general public, like there's not maybe a shared values and principles as there is in XR or in a business, and you can kind of restrict who comes to it because they got to sort of buy into it, and so it's a harder environment than with the general public.
Yeah. And like another thing is like locality, like you know, I mean, anyone can deal with anyone, but like I worked in A&E for a while, and you know, you work in environments like that, or you've had jobs, or you meet like just any part of society on a regular basis. You know, you feel confident in managing certain things. Like I would feel fine, like in my local area, speaking to certain people in certain ways and knowing how to change the way I talk. But I worry a little bit with how, say, XR draws together a certain group of people more so than others. So like slightly more educated people slightly higher class, and people who've been in sheltered activist bubbles for a long time. And just because you can facilitate in an XR environment doesn't mean that they would be able to kind of hold any space. And I'm not sure I'm being overly cautious and patronizing. Maybe anyone can do anything and I'm not that special. But it's just something at least to be wary of, you know.
That was 5 minutes too.
Cool.
So it's you just want to be aware that facilitating an XR group, there's a certain type of people there, and maybe easier because there's a shared understanding more there. So just being aware that within the larger community, it's just more difficult. And, I think there was also a part where actually maybe you'd like more variety of people in XR. Maybe that was the part of the, I don't know. I don't know if I'm close.
I would like more variety of people in XR, but I wasn't trying to insinuate that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, but no, I feel heard, mate. Feel heard.
Okay, great, thanks. Willie?
Yeah, got you, man.
Okay, let me just turn on the stopwatch here. For the broader community people's assemblies, I do think that empathy circles could be a process used in those as well. And I think it could address some of the issues. For example, a drunk person, they got to come into the circle, and there's the basic, structure that they need to follow. Otherwise, it's not just for you're not there for a free-for-all, it's just not. So you got to have some kind of basic foundational structure. And it seems to me this is a process where everyone gets heard.
Yeah, so you're saying that the empathy circles, people's assemblies structure, having that as a foundation would be a good, is a good mechanism for bringing out conversations in
yeah, it's like having that as a first layer to get people, right away they get heard, you get involved, they get engaged. And because I hate that feeling of being in a group, and it's like the facilitators up there, they're putting all these things out, like Vish is talking about, like the communist Marxism and all that. It's like I just feel myself getting really pissed off, like there's no space for me to talk, and they're just pushing all this stuff down my throat, and I can't respond, without making a big scene. So, I mean, there's a lot of people I know have that same feeling, and it's like, I don't want to go to these groups where they're just throwing this junk at me, where I'm not be able to engage.
Yeah, so you're what I'm getting, you're saying that you're commenting on poor facilitation, contrasting that with empathy circles and public people's assemblies and stuff. But you're saying that when a facilitator becomes a leader of a conversation, that's it's not conducive to the people in that meeting feeling heard and being able to feel like they can contribute. Is that fair?
Yeah, exactly. And then when you're doing an empathy circle, it's like doing it in smaller groups, 4 people. You spend an hour maybe starting. Then everyone starts feeling heard, and you build that trust, and then maybe you can go into some other practices. So I just see that this practice is just really, I mean, it's a very rich practice. It can be used in a lot of different situations as a starting point, effective starting point.
So you're saying that empathy circles are a good base layer again, saying that there's potential in empathy circles to be able to open people up and have them connecting and trusting each other before potentially moving on to other processes.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a fallback position. Like you get into stuff and a conflict comes up and you say, oh, let's go back to the empathy circle. And then it's sort of like this fallback position too. So it's sort of a foundation in that sense.
So you're saying that if conflict does arise, if there are problems, you can, if you have moved on to another process, you can always bring it back to an empathy circle to try and foster harmony again.
And the other to address what Severine is saying about people just, they feel they just don't have the capacity to take part in a group and, be vulnerable. It's the empathy that we're doing here. We're sort of building some listening skills, and it's having those skills to listen one-on-one to those people who are in distress. I mean, I feel, because I know there's people who have lost, family members, they're dealing with really difficult, things are just sort of overwhelming. And they just need someone there to be able to listen to them. And so it's sort of like an emergency empathy. And so this is what we're doing here, is sort of like the practice for developing that, deepening that skill for those people. So, yeah.
And so you're saying that that this practice is a good is good for to take to one-on-one sessions as well. So am I right in saying that empathy circles can be 2 people as well?
It could be it could be just listening. Like if I'm in distress, it's like, oh, somebody just died. I'm in distress. My partner relationship is breaking up, and you is my empathy buddy, just being there to listen to me for an hour. Just let me just pour out my heart, and it's just immensely supportive. And then you get the capacity where then we can mutually listen, right? But some people just don't have that capacity. So, we kind of got to build the capacity.
So the tools that are applied in these circles, it's building capacity for individuals to have meaningful conversations with each other, where people are able to speak, and people are able to and feel like they're able to be heard as well.
I feel fully heard speaking. Thanks. My time's up.
Nice. Kerry, are you
ready?
Cool.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to have a little think about what we've been discussing. I think that. Sorry, I'm so taken by what you've just been talking about, Edwin. So what's floating around in my head is about how important these are, just in a base, the tools that we apply. What I'm thinking about is just how basic they actually are, how fundamental they are to our interactions as individuals, and thinking about how they could be instrumental in changing what's happening in our society at the moment, what I see as some of the ills.
Yeah. So you're reflecting on how basic and fundamental what we're talking about here is all the interactions and how supportive they could be in society.
Yeah. And as someone who likes to spread ideas and tries to think up ways of promoting them, I'm sort of in my head, I'm kind of that's sticking, that sort of idea that this is fundamental, this is basic, this is something that is really important for everyone to be able to do. So I'm thinking on how that could be used to promote this process.
Yeah. So kind of hearing that, it's important for you how to spread ideas, and there's something in what you're hearing and reflecting on now is really sticking around how basic and fundamental this listening practice is, and that there's possibly something in that kind of basic and fundamentalness which could help spread the idea.
Exactly. And quite a while ago, I co-founded the Southampton group, when we were talking about how to start conversations I was thinking about how to get people talking to each other, how to get people in the community talking to each other. And I had this like thing in my head about inviting loads of people to come and sit in a hall and somehow get them as individuals talking to each other one-on-one. And it's almost like a speed dating political thing, where there was I'll stop there just for now to get your feedback.
Yeah, so I think you're telling me about a time when you had this idea, I think, of getting people together. I'm not sure if it really happened, but I think there was an idea of getting people together in a kind of a speed dating idea, but to talk about something political, you know, a church hall and one-to-one and talking through an issue together.
Yeah, exactly. I think that there's more that brings us together than separates us, and that we're taught that our neighbour doesn't have our best interests at heart. So I think that when people actually do talk to each other, they're like, "Oh shit! Like you're the same as me." So I think if there's a way of, again, I just think it's a matter of packaging and promoting in the right way. If there is a way of getting people together in communities to facilitate themselves in this manner, to teach them, have a training session at the beginning with everyone, and then train them on how to do it, and then they sit down and they talk to each other on a one-on-one basis, and get people talking to each other who have different views to each other, with respect and with empathy. I believe that could be a massive game changer. I think if it was possible.
Yeah. So I think I'm hearing that the experience of sitting down and talking to someone who might have a different experience to you or different perspective to you could be a game changer, could be a transformative experience. And I also heard you name that, you know, we're taught that to think that our neighbours are different to us, or that we are separate from each other, and that there's something about the way that we package and promote, I think you use those words, this practice could be really fundamental to how successful it is.
You nailed that.
How it takes off.
Thank you. Yeah, you absolutely nailed that. Yeah, and I think that, again, I spoke earlier about people applying their skills and their experience, and I think there are lots of people who would have the like skills and experience to dream up a template for this, put together a template and a whole package of how we could bring a sort of a speed dating political assembly sort of thing going on, and how that, and have everything in it to create it. And I think it could be easier than I think that would be a route to getting shitloads of facilitators, if loads of people in your community are trained in this sort of manner. That'd be quite interesting.
Yeah. So I think I think what you're sort of dreaming up is a kind of template of some kind of speed dating people's assembly cocktail of something or other, that, and I think it's having the template that people can sort of step into that would create, you know, a lot of resource to people to deliver this. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
kind of got it.
Yeah, like when I say template, I mean sort of like having a PDF of a logo, a Facebook description, and the training, and like a short training session thing. But it would be for like local XR local groups maybe. I don't necessarily believe this should be under this in terms of getting communities talking to each other. I don't really think that it necessarily has to be under an XR banner. I think having it as a separate entity, maybe it would just be a good thing to be in communities.
Right. So the thing of people talking to each other doesn't necessarily need to be an XR thing. That's a kind of across the board need for that. And when you mentioned template, it was I think you mean some kind of resources like a PDF, logo, which would support people to kind of take the idea and run with it.
I feel very, very heard. Cheers, mate.
Is that your time up? I can't see Edwin.
Yeah. I got my 5-minute warning.
You got your 5 minutes, okay.
Yeah, so are you.
So, who's listening to me then? Severine. Is that it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I'm just taking a moment just to be with everything that's been said, and also kind of be with what's there for me as well. Because I guess the way this works is that I'm being, I was going to say fertilized, but I don't think I mean that. Cross-fertilized. My ideas are being cross-fertilized by what I'm hearing. So I'm just kind of allowing for fertilization to happen. You can see it happening. And yeah, a few things are standing out for me. As I think, Willie, both times you've been talking about this, having practices that are kind of good to go, ready to go, kind of ready to pick up off the shelf. And yeah, that's really sort of standing out for me. And I mean, I see empathy circles as one of those kind of practices that you don't need huge amounts of training. And training is something that there's been a thread as well. Vish was talking about that at the beginning. You need a certain amount of confidence, I think, but with a bit of confidence, I think you can pick it up and run with it. And I know that it's been one of the issues that the conflict resilience team, I'm just going to bring that in because we are talking about conflict, has had, in that there haven't been restorative practices that are ready to pick up off the shelf. Restorative Circles is a hugely labor-intensive process. So I'll stop there, actually. Don't want to say too much.
I hope I will be able to reflect well. So, you needed a little while to get the seeds of all that has been said and get cross-fertilized, as you said. That was nice. And then you said, if I understood well, you said that some of these practices are very easily to use and one doesn't need to have a lot of training to use them. But you also mentioned at last another practice, and I didn't get the name of it, that needs a lot more work, that needs a lot of training to be able to be useful. So I didn't get the name of it.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Restorative Circles. It's very labor intensive, I said. So it takes a long time. It's a longer process.
Yeah, but I'm worried that the sound is, it's not only my bad English, it's also because the sound is not very good, so I didn't get the name of that.
Okay, I'll bring my mic closer to me. I don't know if that's any better.
Yeah.
I guess let me just see where else I want to go with this. I'm just taking my time just to
Sure.
just to see what really needs to be said, especially in relation to the question that we started with. So that was quite a long silence. Yeah, and right now there's nothing more coming. So maybe that's it for now. I'll stop there, actually.
Okay, so
I dug in deep, and yeah, that feels good.
you needed time to think about. You felt you needed to say something that was really worth saying, and it took you a long time, and you concluded actually you didn't have anything to say that was really absolutely worth saying. Is that it?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, I think I said needed to be said.
Needed to be said. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. It just felt slightly different to worth saying.
Okay.
But I feel complete for now.
Okay.
Thank you. I feel heard. Thank you. Thank you, Seth.
Wait. Well, I think I'll take Edwin because I. Is a listener?
Mm-hmm. Listening.
I'm a little paralyzed because I have the feeling now I need to say something that needs to be said.
So you're feeling some pressure that you've got to say something that just needs to be said.
Well, what if I just said what's going through my mind?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I might not. Yeah, I guess I also have a little ADHD, so it makes it easier for me.
So you've got some ADHD as well, and so just saying whatever comes to mind might be a good thing to do.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was also thinking about. I was wondering in your different regions, if we have time to answer that question, it would be interesting for me to know if you also use someone as a mediator in your groups, because have a nice meal, Vish. Because because we have facilitators for our meetings. We have one facilitator per meeting, and it changes as you might have understood. But we also have someone who is called the mediator, and that person usually doesn't really change because it's a person who did a special training on nonviolent communication and the principles of these kind of communications, and he or she is responsible to remind us the rules. Maybe you want to reflect.
So you're just curious how other groups are dealing with conflict mediation, because in your group or community, you've got sort of a designated person that's trained, is familiar with like nonviolent communication. So you're just kind of like wondering how others address it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that was one question. And another subject was the fact that I think we here are not just randomly picked up people from anywhere. I mean, we are interested in the same topics. We have about the same psychiatric diagnosis, probably. We have common points, and so we don't represent the population, and we need to take that into account because we want to be inclusive, but we have to know that we don't represent the population, and maybe here in these empathy circles, because we are probably more empathic than the ordinary, I mean, than the average of people, but also in XR, because it might be different from one region to another. In Switzerland, there are very different cultures and mentalities and types of people in different regions, but still there are common points, and we need to take that into account, not to build a sort of self-centered culture, because we think everybody thinks like that, and we are like acres away from the rest of the people around us. So sometimes, so we need to be careful about that.
Mm-hmm. So you're wanting to be careful about sort of having an inbred culture. Like we think that we're like representing everyone, and there's just many different you want sort of an awareness that there's a lot of different cultures out there, and you know, so just have some awareness of that, and not just assume that what we're doing is like everybody is interested in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. In the region where I live, most people, my feeling is about 90% of the people are climate skeptical. So they don't believe it. So you can't even talk about it. It's, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot of climate skepticism in your area. So you're, you know, here we're all kind of supporting that. And so there's this skepticism, and you can't even like really talk with those people about it.
Yeah. But then,
a different culture, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then the empathy is really important, because as I said in previous circles, some people are skeptical also because they are awfully scared, and we need to understand that, and to we can't force, it's a defense, and that defense is necessary for their own functioning. So you can't force people into believing what you believe.
Yeah, you can't. You're just recognizing you can't force people to believe what we believe or you believe, and they have to have empathy for them to kind of hear where they are and kind of understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, you just said what I was going to say. So thank you. Okay. I felt even ahead. Thank you.
Oh yeah, I just jumped ahead of what you. That's excellent listening. Perhaps, I don't know. So yeah, we got to get back to the main room too. So I'm going to kind of close, and so thanks everyone for this. Really appreciate it. We'll see you.
Thanks
in the
everyone. It's a nice little group.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was amazing. We'll go.
See you back in the main room.
Yeah, we'll be in the main room, and I can just debrief. And there's a little button you can push, or you'll be in 60 seconds. You'll be thrown back in. So
we'll see. So I'm actually writing you an email, so it's gonna be done.
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah, I must do things right now. Otherwise, I have no idea when it will be done, and maybe never. It happens.
Oh dear. I know that one. I've put too many things off with like those lovely little stars, you know, like I really will get round to this. Yeah.
Do you use Facebook or not?
Pardon? Facebook?
Do you use Facebook?
I do sometimes. I try to not use it as much because it's painful. Sucks your brain. Hi.
It's also a great tool, but I agree with you. Not yeah, whatever.
Okay, I'm very sorry, Finley, for interrupting your.
No, it's cool. We've been discussing for some time, and it was over, so we're happy to see you.
Okay, welcome back. Welcome back, everyone. If you're a facilitator and you were recording, you can turn off your recording. We have this main recording going, just so you don't record it extra. Okay, well, welcome back, everyone. Hope everyone had a good experience. We're really looking forward to hearing kind of your feedback on what your experience was. So how many are we? We're 20. So we've got about 45 seconds per person.
Jesus.
Just to debrief, maybe even, yeah. So do you want to call on people again, Carolina? Just, you know, go down
maybe Bill can do that.
Oh, Bill, do you want to do it?
Sure.
And who's timekeeping? Can we have someone?
45 seconds, all right.
Okay, yeah, just flag them. It's like, so it's just like, what is, you know, what insights do you have to share with, especially with Paul, you know, for, you know, how might we build this facilitator army?
Okay. All right, well, I'll go around the thing. So, Guillaume, you're first up on my screen. You're muted, Guillaume.
Sorry. I'm surprised. I was writing an answer to a message. So please ask again. I just heard my name.
Oh, sure. So you have 45 seconds to basically sum up, some ideas that Paul could use, towards the building an army facilitators.
Okay. So we've been discussing with Rebecca, and not about that. But for sure, it's a great idea to do that. It's like the army of clowns and a few other useful jokes, and not jokes actually. But I don't really understand if this is to be used to solve problems when people have difficulties between themselves, or if it's a basic way to make people speak together. And I personally would like to be in contact with people who are very good at mediation and facilitating, because I'm inside a thematic group in France where we have problems. And there is a mediation going on in France, but maybe we need help. That's it.
Okay, great. Edwin?
Okay, some of the things that came up in our group were like how to deal with aggressive people. If people sort of dominate a meeting, and just some practices for dealing with that. Also, that there was a lot of talk about empathy circles. How to use empathy circles, the benefits of empathy circles, but that is being a first practice, sort of a gateway practice, and the need for more effective and systematic facilitator training. Some people are being thrown into being facilitators, and just because they're just willing to do it, and that there's a desire for more professional, systematic facilitator training. So that's 45, I think.
Okay. Sev?
Yeah, I was in the same group than Edwin, so I would say about the same, except I would say that maybe aggressiveness and domination for me are not always linked. But how to deal with these people, what the mediators could do, the facilitators could do, and how to be inclusive even with people who can't cope with a group.
Okay. All right. My screen has changed, so if I miss somebody, let me know. Vish?
Yeah, I was in the same group as well, which is quite useful. For me, particularly, it's about the difference between facilitating in an XR group where you've got values and principles to fall back on, and then running people's assemblies for anyone in your neighborhood to turn up, and like how you have to be really shit hot in the way in which you do that, so that if there are difficult personalities there, they can feel heard but not take over and railroad the whole thing. It has to be a real entertaining and really enjoyable experience for people. Otherwise people just aren't going to keep coming, and we don't have those values and principles to fall back on in the same way as we do in XR. So yeah, we can have better training for like running XR facilitation, but like for these other types, it's going to need another type of training.
Okay. Willie?
Oh, hello. Yeah, I was in the same group, but yeah, I feel that what Vish was saying about XR drawing people together are quite similar, and it's quite different to facilitating in the wider community. I thought it was a really interesting point about someone else in our group said about troublemakers need to be heard, feel heard, and the way of getting as many people together who are able to handle a diverse range of people so that they're all heard is the way to having a diverse facilitator pool, so as many different people as possible facilitating. In my mind, the way to do that is to promote this horde of facilitators in like a sexy package. trying to get people on board in an effective way is in an effective marketing, almost like a marketing way, I think would be the key. Yeah.
Okay, Kerry.
Thank you. I was in the same group that's just been talking. So in addition to what has just been said, I think there's something around having support for facilitators and resources for facilitators. So like PDFs, how to do things, but also have peer support around it. I think having agreements that we're going to proceed, let's say with empathy circles, that's the way that we're going to proceed, having a firm, clear agreement that if some issue comes up, that we're going to walk towards it with a particular practice. So that's another thing that stood out. I'll stop there.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, Finley.
Yeah, so a couple of things came up a lot for us. One was the word facilitator army. We had to discuss that a little bit, and whether that was a word of power to come in and change, or whether that was something that the press, particularly sort of the right-wing press, might pick up and produce some really rather ghastly headlines about. We also talked a little bit about the levels of understanding of various people and how facilitators might be able to navigate that a little bit, and whether it is all about including everybody or if there's some kind of weight to it. And the one last thing I wanted to say about it is about the sort of empathy process. I think it's a little bit for all of us to be able to do something like this. I really challenged with short-term memory, and I think to sort of exercise that muscle of facilitation is very useful, and we need to just keep coming back to it no matter how annoying it is. Thank you very much.
Sure, thank you. Carolina?
I didn't expect that. Well, I was in the same group where was Paul, so he already knows my ideas. I believe that the most important thing is to kind of connect regenerative culture and future democracy somehow. Find the for me they are the same. I can't split those two things. And maybe not army, but brigade.
Okay.
That's from me.
Okay. Great. Richard? You're muted, Richard. There you go.
So, yeah, where one of the things that came up in our group is kind of post-truth and kind of explosion of opinions. And interesting to see what can empathy circles, what truth can an empathy circle bring in a post-truth environment. And we had this kind of thing like, okay, maybe it's not so much epistemology knowledge, but some kind of connective knowing. And that it's also that it's almost like working on some new kind of knowledge or some new kind of knowing. That was what intrigued me.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay. Sorry. Great. John?
Yeah, I was in the same group as well as Richard. Yeah, we had the army word again was perhaps an issue. And even the empathy circle, empathic reflection, would that, be any, I don't know, be any better? Yeah, we kind of went a little bit off topic, but at the same time, as Richard just said, it's actually the empathy circle itself was bringing up the most important issue, which was perhaps even more important than the facilitator issue. So I found it really interesting, but I definitely wouldn't. So I don't feel like I could facilitate anything yet, but I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Great. Paul?
Yeah, thanks. This is just brilliant, by the way. Everything. It's really rich. And the breakout group we're in was, again, just wonderful. So I'm digesting a lot. I'm just going to throw in an idea that I heard somebody say before this session, which was around, all around what we're trying to do is to give people this experience of what it might be like to connect with people that have different views and to have that experience of being included. And yes, of course, it's great if we can have those people go to sessions and be in front of a facilitator and have an experience off the back of that and think, that's what it's like. But then this idea of having a reality TV show doing that could do a lot of broadcasting.
Great. Anne?
Thank you. Yes, I think I came to this with a lot of questions. I think I'm going away with lots more, but grateful for the rich conversation. I think one of the things that kind of came up for us in our group was around the difference between kind of rolling out an army of facilitators across the land or having facilitators be trained or pop up or emerge in their local community. And I think for me, as very much a local community person, I would favour the latter. So facilitators actually being encouraged, enabled in a local space, whether that local space be geographic or a community centre or mosque or a local community of however it presents itself.
Okay. Harris?
Yeah. Lots of things came up, and we did get into epistemology, into what is an opinion, what is an argument, what the need to express emotions, and some practical things that came up. One was to suggest that that we learn to listen first, so that we have an empathy circle first, as a necessary first step towards a citizens' assembly, as a preparing a citizens' assembly. And that was, and another thing that came up was the idea that there does seem to be an explosion of opinion at present that is probably only in the same scale as the explosion of printing. So the last 30 years, we have this explosion of expression of people, but in the language of opinions, in the language of facts, and not in the language of emotional outcome. And the emotional outcome is something that should come out of an empathy circle, which is something that is not clearly defined. It's not epistemic. What comes out of an empathy circle doesn't have to do with knowledge. We don't know how exactly to describe it, but it's not just pure knowledge.
Thank you. Peter? You're muted, Peter.
Hooray, unmuted. Sorry about that. So we sort of use the experience to experience the whole process of empathy circles for quite a lot of the time, to be honest, and which was very interesting for me, being with two Americans, partly talking about the way that they did their politics and do their politics. But there were some things which I think that came out that link more into the general subject. One of them particularly was around identity politics and the problems of identity politics, whether that's race, gender, or political parties. That what we need to find ways that escape from choosing our representatives based on their their colour, their background, their political party, and much more about turning the whole thing upside down so that they have a different role. So the role of people is to, these people who we elect is to help us to engage in itself. And we very much touched on what Anne was talking about earlier, I think. I mean, although I'd take it a stage further, I'd like to see people sort of wake up and find that they're facilitators. So they didn't even, it's like it's a virus. They suddenly, found that they've been infected, and it's like, gosh, I've been doing all these meetings. I've become a facilitator. And it's like, I'm not convinced that you need a vast amount of training. I think it can be something that with confidence, people can just grow into. I think that's all I'd want to say.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Richard, Franek.
So what stuck with me the most is the idea that a lot of people feel the need to present their opinions and their outbursts of emotion as a facts, as a not a personal opinion, but some kind of truth, that it's not factual. And I think it's what I'm sorry, I can pull my mind. Yeah, so the idea that most people feel the need to present their opinions as a facts, and that the empathy circle can be a tool that might be used to present to people that it's okay to have only opinions and not have the truth on their side. Only the present their emotion as a emotions, not a truth or opinion. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And let's see, Patrick.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I thought the empathy circle was very enlightening, and what I like about it is the focus on listening without judgment. We discussed some things like I think one person didn't resonate with the army approach and wanted to just listen in nature and use that as an approach. I think that I'm very opinionated and politicized, and I need to stop and listen to people more too. But some of the other things that we discussed were around, just local small communities coming together and leaving behind their kind of tribalistic identity stuff, whether it's through political parties or all these other ways that we separate ourselves, and just come together. And kind of people will naturally fill into these facilitator roles, or kind of naturally pick up responsibility, and that you can get a lot more done and have a lot more representation, and it's a lot more democratic on a small scale. But we also recognize that there's some global, more national issues that maybe aren't addressed through this, but the small community approach is really important. And, in America, I think we're really divided. And I think these empathy circles could really help some of us who probably need to listen a little bit more, especially if we want to build a big movement to make some change happen. And, I think we honed in on a lot of ideas that would allow us to kind of make it easier for people's voices to be heard, and make it easier for people to kind of join our movement.
Thank you. Rita.
Yep. So the thing that stood out for me was just, the ease at which these empathy circles could.
You're breaking up a bit, Rita. At least for me.
Spread. I also agree that it wouldn't need heaps of facilitation. Sorry, I'm on my phone. So, so I was saying that people, just by participating in one of these circles or multiple of them, people will get comfortable with them. And I feel like they can just really spread organically through just by participating. And the other point was also around calling it an army. I know that there's a lot of negative, dark, shadow connotations around that word. And I wonder about how we can reclaim it, because, if we view the current army as like not only causing violence, but actually a humanitarian effort, and having that word, that kind of feeling around the word army, you know, then it doesn't really matter like what word we use, as long as we're using it in the way that we're intending it to be non-violent or compassionate. So yeah, I guess there's wanderings around that.
Okay. And I will also kind of, Misty was in our group and then had to leave early. And she talked about, that she was like managing a whole bunch of things in her life, and she didn't want to be pushed. She needed to focus on one thing and, and be acceptant of herself. And Misty, if I'm sure I'm giving it short shrift, but also I need to say that she really appreciated Rita and the sense of community when you have someone who shares the burden. And I think that, for me, I think we should all just take a time to appreciate that. And the one thing that I had that, was empathy circles, not just simply being sort of like a restorative or a intervention, but actually being an expressive mode of communication. After watching XR and the personal struggles of people, I think that would be very effective. Kind of like what Paul said, I imagined a table of 50 tables with circles and not blocking anything, but inviting people in. And that was my 2 cents.
Okay, great. Did everyone go? Gyom, G-Y-O-M? Did they go?
Guillaume I believe, was first, yes.
Okay. The thing good. Okay, great. Then I want to put in 2 links. They're in the Google document as well as here. One is our next event is December 11th. We're going to do this again. And hope you can attend and invite friends. So I want to build on what we're doing here. And then Carrie is wanting to host an empathy circle talking about the Roger Hallam issue. And so I put her Facebook page there so you can contact her. And you can also post, Carrie, if you want to post on the event, our event page about organizing. If anybody wants to actually take part in an empathy circle with her, I think within the next week.
Can I just say something, Edwin?
Yeah, please.
To clarify a little bit. I think what's needed is a number of empathy circles with different working groups. And I'm talking to the conflict resilience team about it. I think it's moved on a little bit from what we first discussed.
Okay.
But I can add information and make requests into that group of people who might be up for also hosting empathy circles.
Okay, great. So now everyone here is taking part. Oh, yeah, Carolina.
I just want to ask you to put once more the link to the Google Doc, so everybody now can click this Google document, this link, and everyone can write just few sentences what you want to share with us, especially with Paul. Few your ideas, you can recap everything and just write down information. You put your name and what you want to say.
Yeah, thanks for that reminder. That I just put the link in there, and I see there's about 8 or 10 people in there already. So yeah, good place to harvest the insights. And now that everyone's taken part in an empathy circle, that's one of the benefits of the empathy circle. It's fairly easy. You are all designated, certified empathy circle trainers. Yay! So go forth and, create empathy circles. And it's a lifelong, endeavor to get better and better at it. But, you can just get out there and start creating your own. Yeah, Carolina?
And maybe our groups of facilitators, developing facilitators, there is a group on Facebook, another thing. And there is a group of facilitators who has much longer experience than many people here. And you always can ask questions ask for help, etc. So
yeah, there's a link in the event for this event. There's a link to our working group, our XR Empathy Circle work group, and so all the different information is there. So I want to keep us on time. We went over 6 or 7 minutes. So thank you very much for taking part, and hope to see you soon in the next group.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.